So, how many of you have heard the term boys will be boys? And how many of you have also been dealing with a very violent, aggressive boy who is in a situation where his parents are in the midst of a really difficult divorce or separation or co parenting home where there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of conflict, and he really can't get away from it. And you just think, I shouldn't really do much because he's dealing with so many other issues that I don't want to add to his problems. Well, I'm glad you're listening today because we have our guest, Tosha Schore. She has a business life turned business called Parenting Boys Peacefully. And she has a lot to share today that I think will be really, really helpful. So thanks, Tosha, for coming. And can you tell us a little bit about your opinion of the phrase boys will be boys in terms of these specific situations?
Yeah, I don't like the phrase in any situation because I think it puts us in a place of helplessness. And I think that's exactly the opposite of what we need. We need to feel empowered to be able to take action to help our sweet boys when they're struggling in these ways. So I am not a big fan of the phrase "boys will be boys." When we see hard behaviors like aggression coming out, we need to recognize those behaviors as a true call for help, and then we need to figure out what we can do as parents to answer that call.
So it's not something that we should think, oh, he's just going to grow out of this.
I would not. I mean, this is what I say to parents: trust your gut. Yes, some kids do oftentimes go through a stage where they're more aggressive a little bit. They push more, they test limits and whatnot, but it doesn't last that long. And if you are here and you are scared, then I would not trust that it's going to go away. I would instead look at it as a sign that he's feeling stressed, that he's feeling challenged and pushed in certain ways, and he doesn't know how to deal with the feelings. And they're coming out in aggression, and we need to figure out how to help him. So just trust your gut.
Okay. So Tosha, tell us a little bit about what you do and what makes you so good at what you do.
Sure. So I run a business called Parenting Boys Peacefully with a mission to create a more peaceful world, one sweet boy at a time. And I do that by working with parents of young boys to care for themselves, connect with their boys deeply, set limits lovingly, and play wildly. And I am good at what I do because, one, I've been doing it a really long time. Two, I am really, really good at setting limits. And I should say setting loving limits. So not setting limits in the way that most of us think about setting limits, but it is a skill that I find that most parents are lacking, either in the skill or the confidence or both. And it's something that we really, really need to help our kids through challenging behaviors like aggression. So yeah, I'm really good at that. And then I think another thing that really helps me help my clients get results is the fact that I'm completely non-judgmental, and it's pretty impossible to shock me. So oftentimes when our sweet boys are struggling in this way, they are showing us these really hard behaviors, there's a lot of shame that comes up for us. We feel like we want to kind of bury our heads and hide away. It looks like, whether it's on social media or in the chats at drop off or pickup or whatever, TV shows, it feels like we're the only one, that everybody else's family is perfect. And that's really, really hard. So I am able to welcome parents into a community where there are lots of parents with similar issues, lots of families with similar issues, and they can be inspired by one another as they work their way through the struggles and out the other end.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because there's a lot of violence, not just intimate partner violence, but certainly child parent violence in our community. And people are so afraid to talk about it because they feel like they must be a terrible parent. They've already been called a terrible partner. They're dealing with an awful situation in the legal system. And so it's just like another thing. Like you said, they want to put their head in the sand and say, hopefully this will be over soon. But like you said, it's not something that can be ignored. And another thing is that you mentioned setting limits. Often our clients in our community are up against a difficult ex who does not set limits. And I think it
Mhm.
is really important for us as parents, male or female, to set limits and model proper behavior for our sons.
I think so too. I mean, what I find with parents is that if we don't set limits that are aligned with our values, and if we let ourselves kind of be stepped on, if we feel like our boundaries are being breached, then we become full of resentment. And then we behave in ways that we don't feel very good about afterwards, because none of us behave well when we feel resentful.
Right. And also modeling that kind of unhealthy relationship behavior. You're also modeling it for your son's future relationships of how he's supposed to treat others.
Right, right. And that's a fear that a lot of parents who work with me have is my child, is he going to grow up and is he going to be, abusive to other partners or treat women poorly, et cetera, et cetera. And so it is important that we address these issues. I'm not worried about those things, and I think I'm worried if we let it go, but I'm not worried if we address it. And I think that's also something that's key, is if you're struggling in this way, the first step is gonna be kind of taking control of your worry, because nobody can be helped by somebody who's worried about them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If you just think about yourself, right? If I'm worried about you, Lisa, and I'm trying to help you, it's not going to land very well.
Right. It's almost like your emotions get in the way of how you are supposed to act.
Right. Well, I think of it like, I think of an analogy of a flight attendant in turbulence, right? Like, I fly a lot and I'm terrified of flying, but I fly a lot because I love to travel.
Mm-hmm.
And if we hit turbulence and I look to a flight attendant, and that flight attendant is, asking somebody if they want milk in their coffee or if they'd like a snack or something like that, then my nervous system senses that my reaction to whatever is going on is outsized compared to reality. It helps me to calm. I'm borrowing that flight attendant's nervous system and I'm calming myself, right? But if I look to that flight attendant and there's turbulence and that flight attendant is freaking out, you can be sure I'm extra freaking out. And so we need to be that flight attendant for our child. And so the first order of business is always what I call getting ourselves into good enough parenting shape. We don't have to be perfect, but we have to get ourselves into good enough parenting shape that we can not be scared, feel threatened, and confident in our ability to keep ourselves safe, and help our child.
I recently learned about the term self regulation, which fits exactly with what you're saying. It's like, in order to help someone else, like your child, you need to self regulate. So you need to be as calm as possible and in control as possible. And then you can help your child do something called co regulation, which is helping them process their experiences and navigate the world more effectively. And co regulation is impossible if we don't have self regulation. So I love the example of the flight attendant that you gave. Another thing I'm wondering about, which you alluded to earlier, are warning signs. So you said trust your gut if you're seeing things happen. Can you talk a little bit about what might be some warning signs that are a little more outside of the normal range in terms of aggression that we should be paying close attention to?
I mean, I don't know what normal range is, because I work with parents whose kids are, hitting them, kicking, spitting, calling them names, hurting siblings.
Okay.
This is what it's perfect, right? This is what
That's
we're
what I'm
dealing with.
talking about.
Yeah, and I want to say it out loud because it's happening in a lot of families, and it can stop. It can stop. We can help your sweet boy through this, but it is real. I forgot, what's the question. What did you ask me about it?
I said, are there specific warning signs, like
Oh,
as opposed to normal? And you gave me
oh,
ones that are certainly outside of what we expect as normal, generally respectful behavior, even with hormones going on.
oh
Yeah.
yeah.
So
This is normal in my world, and it's a normal starting point in my world. Let's just say.
that's a parallel to what we deal with, since we
Yeah.
only deal with high conflict relationships and separation. It's the
Right.
same thing. Like, everything we deal with is extreme. So to us, it's completely normal as well.
Yeah.
So yours is, again, very, very parallel.
Right.
Um,
And again, you want to just notice, like, if it's not going away on its own and your sense is like it's getting worse, or your child is doing something to numb their feelings in order to stop the behavior, like these are signs that you want to watch out for.
Okay, so for example, what would be a numbing thing that they do? I can imagine, but I'd love to hear what you have to say.
It could be thumb sucking, it could be nail biting, it could be, you see kids who've got like their shirts are soaking wet from, chewing on their sleeves or their collars. It could be, sort of masturbation we see a lot, like, kids who are just sort of obsessively masturbating. Just any sort of behavior that a child is doing to numb. In other words, if I do this, if I suck my thumb, or if I just keep, chewing on this shirt, like it distracts me from the feelings that are underneath. Because ultimately, like, aggression is just the surface, it's the surface sort of representation or outcome of hard feelings that are underneath. And what we want to do is create space for those feelings to come out so that they don't build up and explode in aggression. Because the feelings are normal, right? Especially your parents are struggling, they're having a contentious divorce, or whatever is going on. I don't know all the details of the families that you're working with, but it is normal for your child to have feelings about this. It is scary. It is upsetting. It's worrisome. It's all of these things. There's nothing wrong with the feelings. The feelings are normal. But so many of us are uncomfortable with the feelings, that we try to calm our kids, right? So if maybe he's crying, maybe you had a fight with your partner and it was scary and your kid is crying, and rather than just because we don't know any better, rather than holding space and allowing him to cry, what we do is we misidentify that crying or the tantrum or the upset as the problem rather than the healing, and we try to put a lid on it. We try to stop it, even if it's with good intention. It comes from the best of intentions, right? We want him to feel better. It's like, it's horrible. It's heartbreaking to see our child hurting in this way. But the irony of it is that when we shut him down, the aggression gets worse. And when we're able to stay close and listen, the aggression subsides.
Oh my gosh, this is so important. I'm thinking about just the word suppress. Like when you try to suppress those emotions, things just get worse. And I really love how you said how normal it is for kids to have those feelings. I think about in my own situation years ago when my son started getting very aggressive, and I was like, I can't deal with this. And I was on the phone with this therapist saying he needs to go somewhere else for a while. And the therapist said, no, this is the worst thing that you could do if you sent him away now, because what he's doing is he's expressing his anger and his fear. It's coming out. And so you have to be here for him to show him that it's okay to get it out. And we've made progress by getting to this point, because before that, in a lot of the sessions, they would just talk about very cerebral things like the news and debate and sports. And it was like they never got to stuff. So he said, this is such a great sign that it's starting to come to the surface, because now we can finally deal with it. So what you're saying really resonates with me. I still remember all those years ago being terrified. And it was calming to have a therapist, a professional, say to me, this is normal. Like, it's okay. It's supposed to happen this way. Because then it's just like, it helped me regulate myself because my perspective changed.
Right, because you weren't as worried. You weren't as worried that something terrible was happening because that therapist normalized the feelings.
Exactly. And another thing that you're coming across with the idea that I love, that is what we do, is you're letting people know that they have control over the situation. Like, there's so much that we can't control, but you're sending the message already that there's things that parents can do to help their children deal with aggressive behavior. It's not just like, oh, well, we're going through this terrible experience and I guess my kid's going to suffer and there's not much I can do. You're saying the
No,
opposite. But it's empowerment through education. You have to learn and you have to do the work to actually
absolutely.
take care of it. And it's probably not easy or enjoyable. It's going to be hard.
Yeah, some of it's hard. Some of it's actually kind of fun. We also use play.
Yeah.
So it's not all horrible. There are definitely going to be times of laughter and smiling and all of that as well, and rough and tumble play, physical play, times of connection that we put aside to connect with our child. So it's not all just like setting limits and listening to big giant feelings
Right.
about the
That's
limits.
good. That's good to know. All right,
Yeah.
I had read recently that girls are actually more aggressive than boys when they're younger in their relationships, but especially towards other girls. How are boys different in their aggression, and why do we really need to keep an eye on boys' aggression maybe more than girls' aggression?
Well, I actually don't think about it this way. I don't know. Like, I don't know statistics, boys, girls, who's aggressive, who's not. The reason that I focus on boys is because I feel like when I look out into the world, and whether I'm looking at a global scale or a national scale or a local scale or a family scale, right? Generally, the violence, the aggression is coming from men. Not always, but mostly. And to me, I had this light bulb moment where I thought to myself, well, gosh, if we just shifted the way we parented our boys, right? If we created space for them to have feelings, if we normalized that the entire rainbow of feelings is normal for every human being, including boys, then what kind of men would we raise and what kind of world would we have? So that's the perspective that I'm coming at in terms of the gender. What I do isn't gender specific. The tools work for everybody.
Oh, I was going to say, do you ever have parents of really aggressive girls say, "Can you help me?"
Yes, I do. I usually have one or two in my membership community, a couple who take my course. Like, I do have people who kind of, sneak in. They're like, "Can I come in? My girl's really aggressive." I'm like, absolutely, if you're okay with, the way we're talking about. You probably have heard me. I think I've probably said sweet boy.
Yeah.
I often refer to our sweet boys as we're working through. So if people aren't offended by that, then it's totally fine.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Yeah.
kind of like, if you want the knowledge, like, just accept that that's how it's
Right.
done.
The other thing is that as a, I want to say as a culture, but when I say a culture, I even mean like world culture, because I work with families all over the globe. And we are generally much more fearful of aggression coming from our boys than we are coming from our girls.
Mm.
So this is also something that's really important to pay attention to, because like I said before, if my boy is hitting me, for example, and I'm terrified, then he gets more scared and the
Mm.
behavior gets worse.
Yeah.
So again, back to that, starting with ourselves. So the path to peace that I'm teaching parents is always starting with getting ourselves into good enough parenting shape, right? Caring for ourselves. And then we're focusing on connecting with our boys deeply. So like that might be through one-on-one time. It can also be through any activities that you do with your sweet boy that brings laughter, that brings smiles, that leaves you feeling closer to one another. And then, of course, the setting loving limits. We have to get really, really good at that.
Mm-hmm.
And then play. So, really not underestimating the power of play to create closeness between you and him.
I mean, this sounds like a pleasure. It sounds really exciting and something to
I
look
don't
forward.
want to exaggerate. It's not like a pleasure, but but there are fun moments for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think even you just saying that in my head, because I have a boy and a girl, my boy is going to be 24 soon. But I think back to like all of these moments that we've had where we really have had fun and bonded, and it's wonderful. So things
Yeah.
did change a lot, and we did get through that difficult period.
Yeah,
Now,
and things can change a lot more quickly than people expect as well. I
really,
want to say that too. People seem to think that it's going to take a really, really long time. And it is a practice, and it is, behaviors change depending on what's going on in our children's lives. So if you're going through a contentious divorce or if you have a challenging partner, I mean, this is a force that's going to affect your child's behavior, but it can get better. It will get better if you use the tools that I teach for sure, and then it will dip. Right, there will be other times when something happens, but the difference is that you now have a full toolbox and you're not scared and you know what to do to get you and him through much more quickly.
Right. I think of it like a muscle. Like you've already learned how to do it. There needs to be
Yeah.
maintenance,
Yeah.
but it's not going to be as terrifying as it is in the very beginning.
Right. And you have the confidence of knowing that you can get through it.
Right. Right. Which is resilience,
Yeah.
really.
Exactly.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
are some mistakes that people make when they're dealing with their son's aggression or boys' aggression? Because I'm thinking not just parents, but let's say teachers.
Yeah. I mean, one is we touched on before, which is just hoping that it goes away on its own. It
Mhm.
needs to be addressed. So that's one. Another mistake that I see parents make and teachers is using isolation
Mm.
as a strategy to try to make the aggression go away.
So like
That
a
act,
timeout,
sorry?
so like a timeout, like sending,
Yeah,
separate.
like timeouts, or like a teacher will send a child away, to be in the corner or out to the office or something like that. And I think it's really important to say that, generally aggression is fear in disguise. And when a child is scared, they are usually feeling alone. And
Mm.
so isolating a child then, whether it's a timeout or sending to the office or whatever, just kind of compounds that feeling of I'm alone, I'm different, I'm bad, something's wrong with me. So that is not a good strategy if we're looking to stop the aggression. I mean, and that's
Wow.
probably one of the biggest ones that people tend to
That's
tend to do.
fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, that one part, what you just said, I'm like, that is amazing. I mean, that could change so much and it makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there are lots of mistakes we make. I would say that those are the biggest in terms of us as parents. I think another mistake that we make, and I think it's just because of the shame and the embarrassment, is that we try to deal with this on our own. Right?
Hmm.
We're afraid to tell anybody, and again, we are scared, and so we are feeling isolated. And the irony is that if we actually move into community with other people who have similar struggles, we can gain the strength to and the bravery to be able to help our child through.
Yeah. What you're saying again is so parallel with what we do and the importance of community and support and the right support.
Love
It's
that.
just being involved in that kind of community will help you heal faster.
Absolutely. Oftentimes people will become a part of a community and then tell me, well, things kind of got better. I haven't
Mhm.
really done anything.
Right?
I'm like, yeah, well, you did do something. You joined a community, and all of a sudden you're in company of people who have normalized something that you felt like, made you a pariah. And so your shame has settled, your fear has lessened, and so you're showing up a different person. And when we show up with a different energy, our kids behave differently.
Yeah. You're reminding me of a comment, of a big compliment testimonial that we got from a client recently who's dealing with something you might have heard of called parental alienation or abuse by proxy, where a toxic parent has turned the kids against this parent. And we were asking, because we have this weekly legal abuse support group, but we deal with issues like that since most of our people have kids. And he was saying that it's changed everything. Just, he said, it's not even like the legal part of it has gotten addressed yet with the kids, but just being around other people and not feeling so alone has
Yeah.
lifted, like it's just lifted everything, that cloud of like, oh my gosh, like everyone's judging me, and then to be around other people talking, sharing their own stories, it's like, oh my gosh, it's not just me.
No, it's definitely not just you. I wouldn't have a business.
Me neither. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what about do you want to quickly, if we have enough time, talk about your 5-step process? Obviously, this is not like the cure all. They need to, spend more time. But what is your
Yeah.
5-step process to deal with all of this?
Yeah. So the first is setting ourselves up for success. So that includes some of the things like that we've talked about, like getting ourselves into good enough parenting shape, right? So we want to set ourselves up for success, just like you would when you were training for a marathon or trying to lose weight, or like if you're trying to change any behavior habits, you need to think about what your environment is, who's around, what you need to tell them, all that type of stuff. So we focus on setting ourselves up for success. Then we work on the connection piece. We also work on scanning. And so we want to kind of become detective and figure out like when is this behavior happening? Because one thing that I see over and over again is it feels to parents like it's just all the time
Mm-hmm.
and out of the blue. These are the kinds of things that parents will say. And there's always a pattern. And once we find a pattern, we can then feel much more empowered to do something about it.
Yeah,
So then we look at setting limits, setting loving limits, and then we look at play. So those are the 5 things that we look at in order to get the aggression to stop.
wow. I mean, this is so exciting already. Like in my head, there's certain clients that I know I can send to you immediately because
Absolutely. Happy to help.
yes, I mean, this is really amazing. So can you just say how people can best find you or learn more about what you do?
Yeah. Best place to find me is on my website, parentingboyspeacefully.com.
Great. And do you have any resources that people can look at or anything that you recommend?
Yeah, on my website, you'll see a free 10-day reconnect. That's a great thing to opt into and do on your own. It's like 15 minutes or less a day for 10 days that will help you begin to transform your relationship with your sweet boy. And relationship is going to be key in terms of getting him to stop with the aggressive behaviors. So it's a great place to start if you have a child who's being aggressive towards you. So that would be one thing. I also have a course called Out with Aggression, a step by step practice to stop your boy's aggressive behaviors and lift your parenting confidence. And I can get you a link that you can share with people, Lisa.
That would be amazing. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Tasha, for taking the time today. We're definitely going to be in touch after this because I think what you do just fits perfectly. It's just such an excellent resource to have for our parents who are really struggling with kids that are really struggling.
Yes, I know how hard it can be. I'm really glad that I was able to share and hopefully inspire some parents and let you know, all you parents out there, that it will get better. It is
Yeah.
quite possible and it will get better.
With the right support, not on
Yeah.
its own though.
No, not on its own, but absolutely, absolutely, it can get better because the feeling is like it's going to go on forever. It's not going to go on forever. We're going to address it, we're going to dive in, and things will transform.
Great. All right. Well, thank you again, Tasha, and we will be in touch soon.
Thanks, Lisa, so much for having me on.